what they're seeing. A snap poll of CNN viewers found that 7 in 10 viewers had a positive reaction to the speech. A whopping 76% of CBS viewers said they approved of what they heard. And these are the very same networks that spent years trying to bury Trump's political career. Democrats ran a whole failed election campaign on the notion that everything Trump does is automatically evil. Well, last night they showed they're yet to come up with anything better. And if they don't, Trump's going to win so much, he may even get tired of winning. Well, I'll speak to our panel about Trump's speech in a moment. But first, Real America's Voice host Brian Glenn. Brian, great to have you on Uncensored.
Hey, good afternoon. I almost want to grab my passport and come over to where you're at and give you a big hug on that intro there, because you were spot on with your assessment of last night's speech.
Well, you don't even need a passport, because I'm here in New York at Fox. So you can, if you're in the area, Brian, come and give me a big old hug. But look, I'm not here to hug you. I'm here to slightly hold you to account, because in the middle of what has now become probably the most famous, infamous press conference in the history of the Oval Office, you asked a question. And for those who have been living under a rock, let's take a look at the question.
What was your second question?
My second question for President Zelensky. Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest, why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not respecting the dignity of this office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Yes, maybe one.
Maybe something
like yours. Yes.
That'd be great.
Maybe something better. I don't know. Yeah. We will see.
Now, as you know, Brian, all hell broke loose after that exchange.
Yeah.
Look, some Americans agreeing with you, but a lot of people, including myself, vehemently disagreeing with you, in the sense that why does it matter what President Zelensky wears, given that he's at war?
Yeah. Well, the last time I checked, the war was not happening in Washington, D.C. It's happening over in Ukraine. Now, let me just start out by saying this. No one has been on the campaign trail and has covered the America First MAGA movement than me. I should be the poster boy of covering that. That was one of the top questions that people always asked me. Why does he always wear the little green jumpsuit or whatever alternative outfit he has when he meets with these people of authority, these high-ranking global figures? That was a question that I was always asked, and I did not have the answer to that. So given the opportunity in the Oval Office, as controversial as it may be, and there's really two sides on this, Piers, the people who love the question are the people who are tired of their taxpayer dollars going over to Ukraine. The people who are viciously attacking me for asking it, for the most part, support the war in Ukraine. So you've got two sides of it. I understand, Piers, the outrage, I really do. But I was just asking a question that the American people have been wanting to ask for a long time.
Well, fair enough, and I don't dispute that, by the way. I know a lot of Americans have been agitated by it, but you haven't quite answered my question, which was, why do you care what the president of Ukraine wears in the Oval Office?
Well, I think it's an actual reflection of his appreciation. Does he appreciate the aid and the support? And people go back and debate the actual amount that we provided to them. I think sometimes, Piers, you can judge a book by its cover, and the outward reflection of how he respects the Oval Office, respects President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and the American people. So I think if you're going to if you come into the Oval Office and you've seen other dignitaries be in that same office, the way they dress is a reflection, perhaps, how you feel. Now, there's a lot of debate on Winston Churchill, obviously, wearing war fatigues when he came to Washington, D.C. That could be discussed as well. But to me and to the American people, it does matter. I would have been slapped silly as a kid if I would have went to church without wearing a coat, just a nice clean shirt, a tie, and a jacket. That's just customarily. So I think Americans view that if you're going to go to the Oval Office, dress like you're happy to be there. That's all. Now, obviously,
so
let
me ask you, was Winston Churchill then disrespectful when he turned up at the White House during World War II not in a suit? in the world, and with April the 15th now fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. Enforcement has ramped up in 2025, and if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you do, the worse it gets. April 15th marks another tax year that has passed you by. The smart move is to get ahead, but never contact the IRS alone. Let the experts at Tax Network USA handle this for you. Why? Well, not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. They have proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favour, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million. Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. You can talk to one of their strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters. Stop looking over your shoulder. Protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Piers. That's Piers. April 15th is upon us. Act now before the IRS does it first. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Piers.
That same question, if I would have been
Really?
there. I'm just saying, if that's what America's asking, perhaps I would have asked that question, Piers. But I respect Winston Churchill greatly. But, I can't make a comment how I would have felt at that time. I know one thing. This war needs to end. You and I both know this war needs to end. We need peace. You want peace. Everyone in Ukraine wants peace. Matter of fact, Piers, my first question actually was his legacy to go down as a peacemaker and how important that was. And he said that many times on the campaign trail about being a peacemaker. So that was my first question. And then my second question obviously was the one that got most of the attention. But at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't matter what he wears in the Oval Office, but I just felt like the American people wanted to see that he appreciated the amount, because it's very controversial, as you know. You pay attention to. You're friends with President Trump. You hear him. You hear from him a lot. He wants peace. He doesn't want any more bloodshed. I mean, what? 2,700 people a day.
Listen, on the issue of the war, I agree with you. I agree with President Trump. It's got to come to an end. But specifically on the attire issue, because you were obviously the guy who raised the question. I've got a couple of things I would say. One is, it wasn't just Winston Churchill who didn't wear a suit during wartime in the White House, but Elon Musk right now regularly addresses the world's media in the Oval Office wearing T-shirts. Is that disrespectful? Should he wear a suit?
Well, he's not the one getting paid, hundreds of billions of dollars either. He's one saving.
No, should he wear a suit?
I understand your point. Yeah. Well,
should he wear a suit?
Well, if I was him, I'd put on a suit. But then again, his task is to find waste, fraud, and abuse in our government, and he's saving us potentially billions. We're not giving him billions, so that's a great argument, and I've heard it before. There's even people have said, why does he bring his kid into the Oval Office? That's another discussion we can talk about. So I do see your point on that. But I think the American people view this conveyor belt of money going to Ukraine without any end in sight. That's what they're most concerned about. And the outfit perhaps was a reflection of his maybe disrespect or not willing to have a peace deal. We need this mineral rights deal. MAGA wants accountability for the money that we've given them. Granted. And so MAGA wants this deal, and I'm hoping that we can get him back in the Oval Office. And Piers, let me be the first to announce here on your great show. If he shows up in a suit, coat and tie, the whole bit, let me be the first one to apologize for my statement publicly and offer any kind of condolences that I can provide for him, for the people of Ukraine, because I certainly did not want to offend anyone there. I have received thousands of death threats for my comment.
Really?
But, absolutely. Absolutely. And for some reason, I'm getting calls from all around the world, not just people in the U.S. that are mad, but I got people from all over the world. It shows up on my phone. I don't know how they got my phone number. But, so I just want to make sure your viewers understand, I don't want the bloodshed to continue in Ukraine. I don't. I want the war to end just like you do. But
let me ask you, just on a final point about the attire, because interestingly, Donald Trump was accused of mocking Zelensky when he arrived outside. But actually, I think Trump genuinely thought he looked smart, because in the middle of the debate that he was having with you, Zelensky, about what he was wearing, Donald Trump several times turned to Zelensky and said, I think you look very smart myself. So I don't think Trump had any real problem with it. But there is a suggestion that the whole thing was a setup because of Trump's wink. Let's take a look.
I think he's dressed. I think he's
I
dressed
like this
beautifully.
guy. I don't.
I think he's dressed beautifully.
So I have more serious things than answer on such
Yeah,
question.
sure, that's
I
a
will
good-
answer on more
That's
serious
a good
question if
statement.
I can.
That's good.
Yeah. So please, about security guarantees and about just ceasefire.
Now, that was a very clear, very deliberate wink directly at you, which many people have taken because Trump said, I think you've got another question, haven't you, Brian? Then the wink that he knew all about this. Can you clarify once and for all, did the president know you were going to do this?
No, I do not talk to the president offline. I do not talk to him unofficially. I talk to him in the interaction of whatever environment that I'm in. He and I go way back. We've been covering on the campaign trail. I tend to be one of his favorite guys in the media. I understand that, and I know that comes with some criticism with that. But that was not pre-planned. J.D. Vance, myself, President Trump did not predetermine this whole, ambush or this bulliness of him. But I will say this: you know President Trump better than probably I do. You've known him for a long time. He is the art of the deal. He knows he has to keep people engaged. He has to make sure that everyone feels at certain times welcome, not completely offended. So by him kind of saying, well, I do like what you're wearing, and I don't know if you two like each other or not. It was a moment, I think, but President Trump just kind of kept that conversation going straight. But Piers, I just want to make sure you know, we did not plan that interaction.
Okay, good.
At all.
Good.
Not at all.
We've
Matter of
cleared
fact,
that up.
Yeah, because real quickly, because before I asked the first question, I said I have two questions, one for you, President Trump, and one for you, President Zelensky. That's all.
Got it. Well, you've cleared it up. And for what it's worth, I think the fact you've had death threats over this is absolutely repulsive. But I appreciate you coming on, Brian. Great to talk to you.
Hey, and I can't wait to give you a hug or a fist bump or a handshake, one or the other.
I'll make sure I wear my best suit. Take care, Brian.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now is the CPAC chair, Matt Schlapp, the host of The Michael Knowles Show, Michael Knowles, the host of Pushing the Limits, Brian Shapiro, and Joanne Carducci, also known as JoJo from Jersey. Well, welcome to all of you. Let me start with you, Michael Knowles, just on that point. It was a kind of fun debate, I guess, but it has got an extraordinary amount of traction. This idea of whether Zelensky should have worn a suit. Do you think it matters?
I think that people just don't like Zelensky. And so I think sometimes, you remember this from the schoolyard, if you don't like someone, you start to make fun of some aspect of the person, how they dress, how they look, whatever. But I don't think it's really about the suit. Winston Churchill looked great in his frilly burgundy rompers, and I think Zelensky looks perfectly out of central casting in his war fatigues. I think this is more about hundreds of billions of dollars in the Ukraine war. I don't think it's so much sartorial, because if anyone walked into the Oval Office, even wearing the nicest suit he could find, it would pale in comparison to President Trump's Brioni, and I think we all know it.
That is true. Let's cut to the bigger story, which is the speech that Trump made last night, Michael. I mean, it's had pretty rave reviews, actually, from, I would say, the majority of people. I'm watching it myself in real time, 90-odd minutes, the longest speech of a State of the Union kind, even though it wasn't technically called that because he's only been there a few weeks, but it was a State of the Union speech in many ways. But it was also a chance for Trump to remind people of the unbelievable number of things that he and his administration have already done in the first few weeks since he took office again, which I think, having spoken to him a number of times myself in the last 6 months, it plays into the sense that I get about Trump, that he believes he's had a second chance at life after the assassination attempt that failed, became so close to killing him, and a second chance at the presidency, which, again, he must have had moments in the last 4 years where he may have thought that had gone. So I get a feeling of a guy in a hurry, determined now to make a legacy. And I also got a feeling at the same time of a Democrat Party in complete and utter disarray and utterly clueless as to how to deal with Donald Trump?
Without question, there's that old observation from Dr. Johnson that hanging concentrates the mind. When a man looks death, be it political death or physical death, in the face, it can focus him very much. And I think on both counts, Trump has done that. So he's moved very quickly. He promised that we would get tired of winning. I am a little bit tired. I'm not tired of the winning, but I am tired. It's an amazing flurry of things that he's accomplished in the first 6 weeks. And as you say, Piers, the speech was extraordinarily well received. CBS News, which is no fan of President Trump, had a poll out right after the speech, showed 76% of viewers approved of it. And when you drill down into specifics, the numbers only got better from there. The key to the speech was that President Trump was having a good time and the Democrats didn't know how to react to that. And then he had that one little trap for them. He said, I've come up here 5 times and these people won't applaud anything. I could cure the worst disease. I could accomplish the greatest feat. These people will not applaud for me. And he made the Democrats look ridiculous because they had their noisemakers and their signs. And he dared them. He said, I dare you to stand up. They wouldn't do it. They're so intransigent. And so at one moment, as we know, is probably the moment that stole the show, Trump had a 13-year-old boy who's fought cancer for 6-7 years, made him an honorary Secret Service agent. If there's one thing in the country that everyone should agree on, it's that that's a really sweet moment. And these Democrats couldn't be bothered to stand up. Many of them couldn't be bothered to clap. They looked awful. I think it was a nasty thing for the Democrats to do, but they just looked so awful. No wonder
Piers,
Trump is getting great marks in the polls.
Independent. If you like the show, we ask for only one thing. Subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Now let's get straight to the point. Support for today's show comes from a business focused on a critical issue: prosperity. US national debt is at crisis levels. Inflation has made life more expensive for everybody, and the stock market is precarious. It's enough to make anyone's financial future feel grim. So what is the solution? Well, a simple one is to opt out of the chaos and invest in something solid and reliable: physical gold and silver. And there's only one name you need to remember: American Hartford Gold. This company has earned the trust of thousands of customers with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and glowing reviews you can see for yourself. They offer an incredible range of gold and silver bars and coins. They can be delivered directly to your door, or they'll help you set them up in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. First-class customer service makes the whole process simple, secure, and straightforward. American Hartford Gold is committed to getting the truth out there and giving you peace of mind in uncertain times. And if that wasn't enough, you'll get up to $15,000 worth of free silver when you make your first purchase and mention my name, Piers. So make the smart move. Call 866-692-2474 or text Piers, that's P-I-E-R-S, to 65532. That's 866-692-2474 or text Piers to 65532. All the details are in the description. Now on with the show. Yeah, Jojo, I actually want you to respond, but only after I've played the clip. So let's play the clip that Michael just alluded to about this young boy.
Tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service. Thank you, DJ.
Jojo, I've got to say, this is a kid who 5 years ago was given 5 months to live with brain cancer. I lost a very close friend of mine to brain cancer recently. It's a horrific thing for anyone to have, whether you're a young guy, whether you're an older guy, anyone. The idea that you could have a moment that heartwarming, which should be just a moment of levity, of unity, for all Americans to go, you know what, that's great. Look at that kid. He's still here. He's living his dream, and he's getting this moment. The idea that that would be turned into a political protest by so many Democrats in the room who not only refused to stand up, but actually refused to applaud at all that that young man got his moment. I thought that was utterly reprehensible. Do you?
Well, here's what I will say. My heart goes out to DJ. I am a mom. My daughter is 12. almost 12. My son is 15. I also have lost friends to cancer, and I would have probably stood up and clapped because it was a very emotional moment. But what we are doing now, what is happening now, is that young boy's story is being used and corrupted for more political talking points to drag the
Wait a minute.
Democrats.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute.
That's exactly what you just did. But that's exactly what you just did.
Hang on. The corruption, if you like, the political corruption of that moment and that boy occurred the moment the Democrats decided not to applaud him. In that moment, they made it a political firestorm quite deliberately.
But let me ask you, let me ask you a question, Piers. What do you think does more for someone like DJ? Standing up and clapping at an address of Congress or funding childhood cancer research? Which one of those two things do you think will benefit that young man and other young boys like him? Because what is not happening right now is that the Republicans are... Sir, I haven't finished, but I haven't actually finished because I would like to just back up what I was saying with facts.
You asked me a question.
I didn't finish it. You didn't let me finish it.
How much awareness do you think that moment has given to brain cancer in America? How much funding do you think is happening right now? How much funding do you think is happening right now as a direct result of what happened?
Is it enough to get DOGE to restore the NIH funding for pediatric cancer research? Is it enough? Because right now, that is what's happening. So you tell me, Piers, how much is enough attention to get Elon Musk, who now apparently officially runs DOGE, even though Donald Trump told a federal court that he doesn't, how much attention is enough attention to get him to start funding that research again?
All right, let me bring in Matt Schlatt. Hang on. Matt Schlatt was shaking his head there. Matt?
Yeah, so they just passed a budget resolution out of the House of Representatives, which will actually spend more money than we spent last year. I don't like that. I'd like to see cuts.
Not answering
this is
the question.
This is the old trope from Democrats that somehow you're compassionate when you spend money. Well, if they're right about that, we should have been able to solve literally every problem under Joe Biden because of our national debt. Second of all, if we don't ferret out the waste, fraud, and abuse, which starts with transparency, shouldn't we know where every grant is going from every one of these agencies? Shouldn't they withstand the public scrutiny? And if you're right, if you think DOGE is all about trying to kill kids with cancer, I don't think it's going to be very popular, and I don't think it'll continue very long. But the opposite is happening.
You have
middle-class voters. You have middle-class voters that are saying, I can't afford to put gas in my car and food on my table. I can't afford all the taxes that come my way. And I think my government...
Those prices have gone up under Donald Trump.
Loaded. What'd you say?
All right, let me bring in...
Piers, those prices have gone up under Donald Trump.
Let me bring in Brian, because Brian's been reacting...
45 days.
Okay, hang on. Let me bring in Brian.
Wait,
Brian,
so it's not... He said that the little pain that they were going to experience was attributable to him. He said that
Jojo, we take it in turn. Jojo, let me moderate the panel, please. Brian, you were shaking your head again there. But let me ask you, Brian, just from a human point of view, the optics of what the Democrats did in relation to that young man, DJ, well, obviously, never mind anything else, just politically, ludicrously self-harming. Everyone woke up today and went, what the hell? You can't even applaud a young boy?
Here's my problem with this argument. Where were you guys when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert were screaming at Joe Biden during the State of the Union when he was trying to honor the soldiers who passed away in Afghanistan?
I was saying how wrong it was.
People like Michael, and I understand, but people like Michael and others on the far right were not. Where were you when Marjorie Taylor Greene was decked out in her ridiculous MAGA gear looking like an imbecile? The problem I have with this, and I agree with JoJo here, the problem I have is it seems to me that people are using death and they're using people for political gain. For example, there were illegal immigrants that committed terrible crimes under the Trump administration as well. Why weren't those victims invited there yesterday? I feel like MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump, for example, uses a police officer's death, which is horrible. We all agree, a terrible thing, right? But there were plenty of police officers that passed away under or were murdered under the Trump administration as well. Why didn't Trump go to those wakes? Why weren't they invited yesterday?
Brian,
Why is it only people?
Brian, hang on, just to be clear then, you condemn all of it, do you? In other words, you condemn what Marjorie Taylor Greene did. So by definition, do you also condemn what the Democrats did last night? Are you an all-encompassing condemner of that kind of behavior, or only if it's Republicans?
So I think that's a very fair characterization of my opinion, but I also will add this caveat to it. If the Democrats 5 or 10 minutes into the speech all walked out, I think they would have been better off doing that. If they walked in there wearing, I don't know, Zelensky gear, I would have been okay with that. Yes, they probably should have stood up and probably should have clapped in that moment. But at the same time, I want consistency. I don't even think they should have been sitting there. Yes, I think they looked a little bit ridiculous with their signs. I think they would have been better put just leaving the speech altogether.
All right, let me
This
show
is ridiculous
Michael.
whataboutism.
I'm going to come back to
Totally
Michael. Hang on, Michael. I'm going to play you a couple more clips from last night.
Oh my God,
on this
Marjorie
very
Taylor
thing.
Greene showed up decked out in MAGA gear. Michael, give me a break.
Hang on, Jojo.
Yeah,
Let me
Michael,
just-
where were you then,
Disrespect
Michael?
a
Hang
childhood
on.
cancer survivor.
Can I play some?
Are
Let
you
me
kidding
play
me?
some clips first. Let me play some clips first,
Oh,
then we'll continue
but
the
our
debate.
fallen
Let me
of
play the
war,
clip.
she can disrespect
Jojo,
that.
let me please moderate the panel. You always want to keep talking. Just pipe down. So, Michael, I want to play two clips.
Don't tell me to pipe down.
One is the Democrats not standing for the family of
invited
Lake
me
and
on your
Riley.
show.
And one is the Democrats holding signs. Yeah, pipe up when I tell you to. Let's watch the Lake and Riley moment
No.
first.
It's called the Laken-Riley Act. So Allison and Lauren, America will never, ever forget our beautiful Laken Hope Riley.
Again, Michael, to me, staggering that there were some Democrats there sitting down and not applauding that family. Whatever your politics, that's about a family of a woman whose life was desecrated in the most appalling manner. The least you can do is show the family some respect. Put aside partisan politics. The second thing was the Democrats holding all these signs, which I just thought, we've got pictures of it here, I just thought it was so childish. It was so like sixth form common room stuff. You know, their little signs, false, 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 etc. I just thought that was embarrassing. And again, it comes back to my original thing, which is the Democrats just do not know how to tackle Trump, particularly Trump Mark II.
Yes, I was waiting for the signs to read, I am rubber and you are glue or something like that. It was totally pathetic. To your point on Lake and Riley and the other victims of illegal aliens who have come into this country, one distinction between the Trump administration, first one, and the Biden administration is, of course, crime is always going to happen. It's a fallen world. But President Trump was able to bring illegal border crossings down to the lowest levels that we've had in 25 years. Just 6 months ago, we were told by Joe Biden that he couldn't close the border because he needed some new bill from Congress to give people amnesty. And it turns out that wasn't true. President Trump, in 6 weeks, was able to bring illegal crossings down to the lowest number in a quarter century, and he didn't need any new law to do it, which means what we all have known for a long time. The Democrats encouraged illegal aliens by the millions to come into this country, up to 11,000 people in a single day. And they didn't deport criminal aliens. And some of those criminal aliens, even the ones who had been arrested for prior offenses, went on to attempt to rape and kill American citizens. So that's the difference. Are you actually going to try to do something about the problem? So I agree with you, Piers. I think that what the Democrats did last night with DJ, the 13-year-old cancer survivor, with the family of Lake and Riley, I think what they did was terribly immoral. But I think it was also just basic political malpractice. How on earth are you going to disrespect a childhood cancer survivor? And by the way, they're the ones who made this political, because not only did they disrespect that young man in the room, but then afterward they went on television, and Nicole Wallace on MSNBC said, oh, it was a heartwarming moment.
Well, I'm going to play that
and
clip.
I just hope he doesn't kill himself. Totally
I'm going to play that
Can we
clip.
talk about the substance of
hang
the
on,
speech at any
Jojo.
point,
Hang on, Jojo. Jojo, I will come to you right after I play this clip that Michael just alluded to. Let's play this clip.
But I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump's supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide. And I hope he isn't one who has to testify against the people who carried out acts of seditious conspiracy and then live to see Donald Trump pardon those people.
Now, that is an adult woman talking about a young boy with brain cancer potentially taking his life if he ever becomes a police officer. Can you, Jojo, not at least take a beat just to say that was reprehensible?
I can't speak for Nicole Wallace. What I would love to do is speak about the merits of the speech that Donald Trump gave last night.
Hang on. Speak
would
for
I
yourself.
say that?
No. What do you think of what she said?
Okay, I wouldn't say that.
What do you think of what she said?
But what I would say, and what I did say,
do you condemn it?
I wouldn't say that. But what I would say,
condemn it?
I'm speaking for myself.
Do you condemn
I'm not condemning her comments. No, I wouldn't condemn. I can't condemn her comments because unfortunately we live in a world, Piers. Unfortunately, we live in a world where Donald Trump has pardoned those people who
What's it got to do with Donald Trump?
Our Capitol police officers. What does that have to do with Donald Trump? What does what have to do with Donald Trump?
You said you wouldn't have said what.
Is that? Are you? Did you ever condemn him for that?
No. Let me find out then. Let me just ask you.
What if he grows up to be someone who defends our Capitol?
Let me ask you, why wouldn't you have said what Nicole Wallace said then? If you don't condemn it, what's wrong with it?
Because I want to talk about the content of the speech that Donald Trump gave last night.
But I've also asked you a question, and I expect you to answer it.
Aside from Brian, wants to do that. You didn't answer my question about the NIH, so I'm not going to give that. I'm not going to.
I answered your question.
To be fair, I'm asking a question.
Can I add something?
Piers is
you're asking the questions, but Piers, don't you want to talk about the merits of the speech?
I'd like you to answer the questions that I ask you. I'd like you to answer my question.
I did answer the question several times. Those are not my words. Those are Nicole Wallace's words. If you want to ask Nicole Wallace if she stands by her words, why don't you ask her to come on your show?
I'm asking you if you condemn them.
I can speak for myself. And for myself, again, why don't you ask Nicole Wallace how she feels about what she said and ask me about my opinions? Do you want? Am I here to talk about Nicole Wallace or to talk about what I think?
No, it's fine. Jojo, it's fine.
Am I Nicole Wallace?
You've made it clear you do not want to condemn her words.
You didn't answer my question about the NIH either.
That's fine.
I did not say that.
It's not my job to answer your questions.
Condemn is an awfully strong term.
It's not my job to answer your questions. You're on my show.
No, it's not my job to answer for Nicole Wallace.
Or you
don't. It's not my job to answer for Nicole Wallace.
You've made your point. You made your point. Let me ask Brian the same question.
So can we talk about the merits of the actual speech now?
I'll come back to you. You wouldn't answer the question. I'm going to ask Brian the same question. Brian, would you condemn what Nicole Wallace said?
It's a ridiculous question.
So I'll answer your question, but I want to start out by saying this to what Jojo was saying. You have a bunch of Capitol police officers that were beaten with their own batons, people that were convicted of seditious conspiracy. I find it interesting that MAGA Republicans find it convenient to only back the blue when it helps them with their narrative. I think that's what Jojo was talking about. Now, I wouldn't have said that statement either. But at the same point, I think I understand what I don't think she said it very well. I believe the point that she was trying to make is you have these Capitol police officers. Some of them have lost their lives, were beaten with their own batons. Some of them have traumatic brain injury. But yet, why didn't Donald Trump invite any of those people? I'm just wondering. So you can't have it both ways here. While I don't like the comment that was made, I also don't like the fact that MAGA Republicans seem to back the blue only when it's convenient for them. I want to say one other thing really quickly about Michael.
One person was killed in political violence on January 6th, and it was a Trump supporter who was killed by a trigger-happy cop.
Okay,
so
I want to respond to that right now, and that nonsense that you just said.
Brian Sicknick couldn't be reached for comment, could he, Michael?
Brian Sicknick, hold on a second. Brian Sicknick died the next day. And for you to hold on a second. Give me 30 seconds to make my point. Excuse me.
It's in the autopsy.
Give me 30 seconds. Can I finish my point, please, to what you just said? And all I'll need is 30 seconds to do so. If you are making the case on this national show that Brian Sicknick's death the next day had nothing to do with January 6th, then you are an imbecile,
I'm not making that
sir,
point.
with
The
all due
medical
respect.
examiner made that point.
Just look at what the scientists
Absolutely
ridiculous.
Great job, Michael.
Let me bring in.
Hang on, Michael. Reciting what the medical.
Let me bring in Matt here.
False accusation.
All right.
Okay, so
let me bring in. I'm glad. Let me just say.
Shame on you.
I'm glad, Jojo, you now find things disgusting. It's interesting what you find disgusting and what you're not prepared to find disgusting.
The death of a police officer, Piers? We're talking about the death of a police officer. You're talking about the actual death of a police officer, Piers. I know you know that those pardons were wrong. I know you know that because you've said it. And I know that you stand with those officers. So I cannot believe that you would defend Michael Knowles dragging that man's life.
If you're asking me,
reading the news report
if you're asking me for my opinion, If you want my opinion about January 6th, I thought what happened was a complete disgrace. It shamed America. It should never have happened. I also felt that a lot of the people were given far too lengthy prison sentences. And I also felt that by comparison to what happened to the people who caused a lot of damage to property and who attacked police officers during the Black Lives Matter riots, there was a very good, strong argument that there was a double standard and hypocrisy about the way that the left and the right treated these things when it came to their own side. So that's my view. Let me bring in Matt here.
Piers, can I just finish
Matt,
my
The death
point
of Officer
real quick?
Sicknick, though, sir.
All right, but
the death of Officer Sicknick.
Okay, let Brian finish his point, then I'll go to Matt. Brian.
I appreciate it. Just really quickly, 30 seconds. Going back to what Michael was saying about the clapping, I just wanted to comment on that real quickly. There were a lot of people clapping when Donald Trump said that the war was going to be over in 24 hours. A lot of Republicans like you were clapping when Donald Trump said he was going to hire a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton and he was going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. Who cares if people clap? I don't care if Elizabeth Warren is standing up and clapping. You know what I care about is results. And right now, gas prices are up. Inflation is up. The war in the Ukraine is still going on. What's going on in the Middle East is a disaster right now. So you can stand up and you can clap, Michael, until the cows come home, but that won't change the fact that Donald Trump is failing this country.
Okay,
well,
Matt,
most people, over three-quarters approved of his speech, and his approval rating's above water. So
that's right.
Okay, well, 70% of Republicans think.
And also the
hold on,
70%.
Hang on. The point,
of
Brian.
Republicans think that Donald Trump won the 2020 election.
Brian, the point I would make is that it's not actually about political stuff. It's just there should be in every State of the Union speech by any president, left or right, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter to me. There should be moments of humanity when actually everybody puts the politics to one side and simply says, you know
Piers,
what, a young man with brain cancer gets made a member of the Secret Service and it's the most moving of moments. We just applaud that for what it is. We don't need to invoke January the 6th. We don't need to say all these other things.
Piers, I don't disagree
You're not wrong,
with you
but it
there,
was a
but you have
political
Donald
speech
Trump
that we're not
but you
talking
have
about.
hold on, you have Donald Trump calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. He's calling the left all crazy people up there on that stage. I agree with you, Piers, but there has to be decorum with the guy who's actually making the speech as well. Can we criticize him for him attacking people?
I would remind you, by the way, somebody who would have been a much better bet to be the Democrat nominee in the last election of Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high. It seems that the Democrats now are like, Trump goes low, we're going to go lower.
No, we don't do that.
It's a losing strategy. Let me bring in Matt, who's been waiting very patiently.
He incited an attack on that chamber, Piers.
All right, let Matt speak, please. Jojo, let Matt speak. Jojo. Matt, I'm sorry. Matt, your response.
Okay, so let's go through all this. The fact is, no one's saying that you have to cheer for Donald Trump. You can dislike all of his policies. You can hate him or loathe him personally. What Piers is trying to say, what Michael is trying to say is that good politicians like Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, Democrats who have been successful nationwide, use these opportunities to try to appeal to all America. And it's not just Americans who are watching this speech. The whole world is watching this speech. So no one's trying to convince you guys to fall in love with Donald Trump. And the secondary thing here is the reason why the American people are increasingly divorcing themselves from this socialist Democratic Party is because they don't seem to have those patriotic ideals that previous Democrats had. For instance, it seemed like there was a time when everybody was pro-cop. It doesn't mean that every cop did the right thing in every circumstance, but generally you wanted to fund cops. When the Democratic Party glommed onto this BLM idea that somehow you didn't need cops, when I do these CPACs all over the world, I had liberals come up to me in these countries say, how can you be anti-cop? That's insane. How about standing up for the military, being pro-military? These were things that we held in common, and there were dozens of Democrats that would stand with Republicans on questions of national security, question on funding these things. What you saw last night is that it's become vogue for Democrats to separate themselves from absolutely everything, including normalized things that everyone should be able to accept because it's associated with Trump. Now, people can make a moral argument that they have to do that because Trump is malign. I don't agree with that. But what they're doing is committing the most heinous, stupid political act, which means they're telling the people who just voted him out of office that they haven't learned anything or listened.
I agree. And what the Democrats
Hold on a
need,
second.
honestly.
What point are we going to talk
the
about?
most
Hang on,
heinous
hang on,
political
hang on.
act
We
is
were
not
going to
standing
actually
Hang on.
talk about what he said.
Hang on, don't all talk at once. I'm just going to make a point that I think what the Democrats are desperately crying out for is somebody new and fresh and exciting, like a Bill Clinton, like a Barack Obama, who can burst through all this ridiculous, frenzied anti-Trump nonsense and present an actual vision for the Democrats and for America that will galvanize new support. Because right now,
hope they don't
I
listen
just
to
see
you.
the Democrats are trapped in this
I have a question
awful
for Matt.
Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, well, Brian, I've got a question. I'm going to come to you, but I'm going to go first of all to Jojo on this because it's about women. I want to play a clip to you. This is where Donald Trump talked about trans athletes in women's sport.
I also signed an executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports. Three years ago, Peyton McNabb was an all-star high school athlete, one of the best, preparing for a future in college sports. But when her girls' volleyball match was invaded by a male, he smashed the ball so hard in Peyton's face, causing traumatic brain injury, partially paralyzing her right side and ending her athletic career. It was a shot like she's never seen before. She's never seen anything like it.
Now, Jojo, do you agree with him that the issue of trans athletes in women's sport is damaging to women's rights and negatively impacts on women?
What I would love to discuss, actually, is
Well, no. Can you just answer the question, please?
And the fact
Just answer. Please answer the question.
I don't think this is an issue this wasn't a State of the
I'm
Union.
asking
I
you a
understand that
question.
specifically, but this.
Can you
and
answer
I'd
the
like
question?
to talk about how we're
I'd
not
like you to answer my
talking about the
question.
price of eggs. We're
No,
not
Jojo,
talking
I
about
would
the
love
price of
you
gas.
to sit-
We're not
you're
talking
on a
about the cost
panel-
of living or what
you're
the
on a
stock market
panel.
did yesterday.
I'm
We're not
asking
talking
you a
about what he's
question
actually doing.
about the speech.
This is an
Do you want
issue,
to answer it or
Piers,
not?
which impacts such a small
Do you want to
percentage
answer
of
the
the
question
American
or
people.
not?
The American people care
want to
about
answer
the
the question
cost
or not?
of living. They care
Do you want to
about
answer
the
the
price of
question?
eggs. They care about the stock
Okay,
market crashing.
mute it for
These
a
are the
moment,
things
please.
they care about, Piers.
All right,
Instead
now
of
we're gonna
that,
mute
we're
you for a
talking
moment.
about these side issues.
If you're not going to answer the question, I'm going to
Piers,
mute
I'd
you.
The merits of
All right, let
what
me bring
we
in
have
Brian.
to
Anna
Brian.
You
Karenina.
guys
Can
both
we talk about
referenced
if we're
wins
talking
and
about
you
random
haven't
Sorry,
things,
this is
won
can we talk
one.
about
ridiculous.
the
Answer your
Tolstoy
question,
lady?
Piers.
Not
Okay,
one.
can we
Piers.
just please?
I will
Jojo
answer-
just
You
refuses
talked
to answer my
about the
question.
substance of his speech.
Let me ask Brian. Brian,
won't
do you
talk about
agree
the
with what
substance of
Trump
his
did
speech.
about trans athletes in women's sport? Do you agree it was unfair and impacts
will-
negatively
I will-
on women?
I will answer your question directly if you could give me 45 seconds to do so.
No,
From
I
the
just want to
beginning,
answer the question.
I feel like
you can't
if
all
you're
keep
born
doing.
a man,
You can't all keep doing
if you're
pre-planned
born,
speeches
I'm
about
answering
something
your
else.
question directly.
Okay.
I'm answering your question directly.
Such a
If you're
ridiculous
born a
conversation.
man, transition to a woman, I have never believed that you should be on the same playing field as a woman. However,
Right.
this is not a top 5 issue or a top 10 issue in
Oh, it
polls
is.
around the country.
Oh, it
You
is. It is.
No,
It
it's
is.
not. In what
It is.
poll,
It is not.
Piers? In what
it's not.
poll?
It is
You know what it comes
100%
under?
not. It
You
is
know what it
not.
comes under?
Do
You know what it comes under?
Do any of you know
All
a
right,
trans
Jojo,
athlete?
you've had your chance.
Do
You
any
didn't
of you
answer
know
the
a trans
question.
athlete?
I'm talking to Brian.
Do you know
I'm talking to
one?
Brian. I'm talking to Brian. The point is, Brian, it
Go ahead.
comes under this umbrella. It comes under the umbrella of common sense, what Trump calls the common sense revolution, and he says America is no longer going to be woke. That resonated, I think, third with people in America, and here's why. Because they had that one advert, you may remember, Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you. The New York Times, a liberal newspaper, said that could have moved the needle in the election by 3
Okay,
points.
so Piers,
Now, here's
let me respond to
Brian,
what you
hang
just
on.
said, Piers.
Hang on, Brian. Brian, here's
Yep.
my second clip I want to play you. This is all the Democrats
Okay.
wearing pink. Democrat women. Take a look at this.